Hi, I'm Robin Miller. I'm the host of Miller Chat. My guest today is Leslie Gang. She is the co-founder of the Hindi Libraries, correct?
Correct.
And I welcome you. This is the first time I'm interviewing a guest out of state. And it is not Ukraine. It is in Long Island, New York, correct?
Yes.
Is it in Long Island?
Yes.
So first time. See, this is what you can do with Zoom.
Right. The miracle of technology.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about your role at the Hindi Libraries. What is it? How did it all begin?
Sure. So it's kind of a very bittersweet story. I was the director of marketing and communications at a private school with about 1,400 families, children rather, about 800 families. And in the summer of 2018, I got a phone call from a parent that his wife had passed away. His wife, Dr. Hindi Krinsky, was our English teacher at the high school. And she was like this young, vibrant dynamo who everyone gravitated towards simply because she was unique. And she encouraged everyone to find their love of reading and literature somehow and connect it to them. She was only 32. She had a complication of Crohn's. This was not expected. And it really shattered the entire community. She was also a mother of 5 students in the school at the time. Well, 4 students, but he was only 1. He was still a baby. Wow. And quickly my role became to organize everything the community was offering to David, her husband, in a list: free babysitting services, carpooling, meals, anything that was offered was filtered through me because that was my role as media relations and communications person. People kind of called me. So I said, listen, I know you're grieving. I'm making you a list of everything you might need. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not in a month, but it's here for you and the community is here for you. So we developed a friendship because then we were in touch with food support, carpool support. And one of the heads of school asked me to help brainstorm for a way to honor her legacy on campus. So we actually came up with the idea of becoming a little free library steward and creating a box on campus in her memory in a location that was central to the students where they can take a book during recess or lunch, drop one off that they're not using, and create this, love of literacy out of the classroom. The inaugural ceremony took place in the late fall, November, December of 18. We asked everyone in the eldest children's grade. Hindi has triplets who were in 3rd grade at the time. She had a 4-year-old and then, like I mentioned, the baby. So we asked all of the 3rd graders to bring 1 book each to fill the box so they could feel a part of this for the ceremony. And they did so. There were about 80 students in the school. And it was really lovely. It was touching. And we kind of moved on thinking how we're building another box on another part of campus, maybe for the middle school kids, for the babies. And all of a sudden I get a phone call from the principal, which kind of went something along the lines of, Leslie, it was great. It was beautiful. I think you're wonderful, but why the hell are there 500 books in my office? What did you tell people? And I'm like, I didn't tell anyone anything, I swear. And this game of broken telephone came about that Leslie and David are asking everyone to bring their children's books. So we took these books home. David and I quickly found some local recipients, a food pantry, a nonprofit in the next town that works with homeless shelters, a local early childhood support center that helps teachers become certified. Really anyone that can just come and pick up a book in the next, 24 to 48 hours and empty our homes. And as we're getting rid of these, we can't turn around fast enough for more books to be at our doorstep because now, as you know, with WhatsApp and Nextdoor and Facebook, people are writing, guys, if you have books, Leslie and David are taking books. Here are their addresses. Let us know if you want to drop off. And we kind of sat again and said, something's happening here, right? People have been holding on to their children's books, and people who are emailing me have college kids or their grandparents. So there are no children in the homes. But people have this connection to books. They're holding them. seems like they've always been looking for a calling as to where to bring them. And we must be those people. So we then incorporated into a 501c3, started partnering with more organizations in the New York area who can pick up or drop off books. For the first few months, we were driving. I mean, I work full time, so I would spend my evenings and weekends making myself like maps of how to go from town to town to pick up books. Sometimes it was one shopping bag. Sometimes it was, one of those huge bins. And then we kind of fast forward now. It's still the two of us. We're still volunteer based. We've collected over 300,000 books. We ship them all over the world to all 50 states, India, Israel, Africa, Haiti, anyone that could find us a shipping partner for overseas. And we subsidize all the costs. And we specifically partner with groups or organizations serving children in need. And that's the gist of Hindy's Libraries.
I think it's absolutely amazing because I think one of the things COVID has taught us is that when children are home, they need to read. They needed to do something creative. Now, did you started before COVID, correct?
Yes, we did.
Did you see the need in books or the number of books go up when COVID came?
Not only that. So it was very interesting. We kind of found a new audience in COVID because many of the nonprofits closed because nothing was in person. So while I was receiving books because people were doing the whole Marie Kondo, let's clean our house, we have nothing else to do, and dropping off books, not many organizations were open to receive them. But then I started getting emails from families in the area who basically said, we know that we're not your typical audience, but bookstores are closed, libraries are closed, schools are closed, our kids are home. So I ended up turning my driveway into a library, but like a free, don't bring it back type of one-way library. I put about 75 boxes on my 2-car driveway. I had everyone schedule appointment times. I didn't want people nervous about seeing each other or masks or gloves. I said, bring a bag, bring your gloves, take whatever you see that your children would like. When you're done, pay it forward, book it forward to another family. And we think we donated like 5,000 books specifically during that, talking about like May, June, when it was really scary, like when people were still not leaving homes unless you had to go grocery shopping. And it was very interesting. And then once our life, reopened in 2021, even though with masks and hybrid, then you had the recipients saying now, hey, we're open again. And we see such a decline in the children we're serving and their ability to read. And they really lost a lot over the last, March through September. Can you really start sending us more? So we did, and we tried to do, as much as we can.
Well, one good thing about COVID is that it increased the need for literacy.
Yeah.
And that's where your group served that purpose. I know you sent us a lot of pictures. I'm wondering how did you get the word out so fast where you started like doing all these different sites and different places in a shorter period of time? How did that all happen so quickly?
So David calls me the good kind of crazy. I don't know about the good kind, but I definitely am when I have, which is sometimes good, but then like, if you're around me, you don't want to be there. When I have a mission, I'm there. So at some point I looked at David and I said, if we got a few calls in New Jersey and Connecticut, a random one in California. And I looked at him and I said, that's it. We're going all 50 states. And he's like, but how are you doing that? I said, don't you worry. I think I emailed, 150, if not more, organizations within a weekend. I spent my time researching per state. I wanted to find at least 2 recipients. So it was as easy as going on Google and saying New Hampshire Children's Nonprofit and Googling and seeing their, reviews and their ratings and their social media. And are they legitimate and can they be recipients? And I actually partnered with Reach Out and Read. Reach Out and Read works with pediatric centers in low-income communities, allowing them to provide a book for every child who comes for a well visit, because the assumption is this may be the only place they're ever having books given to them. They cannot afford them. Schools may not have for them. So this one regional director blasted me to every single center in the country. So that also helped because like overnight, I went from maybe 10 states to 30 because everyone responded that they were interested. And then I filled in the blanks and it was manual work, but it was definitely worthwhile.
Amazing. I'm amazed by your efforts and your your pizzazz, your enthusiasm.
Thank you. And then the pandemic allowed me to kind of branch out as to who we work with, which is when you and I met, Robin. I started thinking, who else is passionate about literacy? Well, children's authors. So we started partnering with children's authors to, showcase them, highlight them, have people do virtual read alouds, which I know you did. Just getting books, if not into the hands of children during the pandemic, somehow virtually available to them somehow. And making those interesting connections and networking with, like-minded people such as yourself. That's one of the best parts of this.
Yeah, I know. I participated. For people who don't know, I've sent you books. And because I always believe in literacy. I think my kid, we adopted our son, and we read to him when he was a baby. Well, not anymore. Now that he's 12, now he can read himself. But people don't understand how literacy literally starts when they're babies.
Right. It really does. It makes you read the statistics. You really see that if you start reading to your children and, giving them exposure to different words and vocabulary at an early age, it makes such a difference in their schooling, in their future, and in their success, 100%.
So he always liked books. And I remember taking him to the library at 2, 3, 4, 5. We used to come home with 20 books.
Right.
And of course, we had to read all of them, which was fine. I miss doing it now that he's 12. Now he's like, no. Now they're using the tablet. Do you get any ebooks? How with this change in technology, do you do ebooks?
So we haven't, because primarily what I'm seeing with the people that I'm working with, the organizations, it doesn't seem like their children have technology. Because they're coming from predominantly low-income housing, I'm not quite sure they have the capability for a Wi-Fi and Kindle. So we focus more on that bedtime physical book. The only technology component that I really did use during the pandemic is I connected authors to different schools, where I made a digital directory of authors who were available to speak to schools either by Zoom, by phone call, Skype, and read stories to them.
Oh, how cool is that?
So that was an interesting thing. And we had about 150 authors all over the world offer their services, and we sent it out to different schools across the country. But the ebook world, I feel right now, for the demographics we're serving, I'm not sure how beneficial that would be, because I don't want that child saying like, okay, great, but I don't have an iPad, so it just makes me feel even worse. And my goal is never to have a child feel like that.
Of course. And what kind of books have you received since you started? I mean, in terms of age group, Danae, what kind of books have you been receiving?
So we collect infant, those heavy board books that, the kids like to bite, the ones with the musical sounds, anything from those to picture books like storybooks. I can read, early readers. Then we have our graphic novels, which are always a crowd favorite, those lower school, middle school graphic novels. And then I even receive a lot of really great poetry books and Shakespeare books, some classics. It really ranges. And the way I tell our volunteers who help me go through them when we receive donations is I have two statements that I think are the overarching kind of mindset. Is this something that a child would be proud to own? And that serves more for quality, right? Is it stained and sticky and ripped? If it is, they already feel like that every day. So we're not going to be sending them that to feel even more like you get somebody's leftovers. The second part is this something they're going to enjoy reading at bedtime? And that is a very vague sentence, because some people might want to read 101 interesting facts about dinosaurs, but somebody else might want to read, the Pokemon guidebook about all the Pokemon. But as long as it's something enjoyable for a parent to sit with a child or an older child to read on their own for fun when they're eating breakfast, when they have, some downtime, that's what we take. Of course, I've received the books that didn't make the cut, like How to Expect When You're Expecting. I'm not going to be giving that to a child. Hopefully that is not an issue they need to deal with. But it's been really cool to see titles I've never heard of in the mix, and really beautiful work. And I think some of the best books I've received are those from the authors that I've partnered with, because then I've also made a connection with them. We just had a literary contest. So I got to see so many different authors. and their work and their style of writing. It's really wonderful to give. And I try, when we pack a box, I try to give a little of everything, especially if, the organization doesn't ask for a certain age bracket. Some of them do ask for only middle school, only elementary. But if they say we service, I have one organization that's called Read and Feed. And basically they do like a farmer's market, but also tables of books. So it's all free, but it doesn't make them feel like they're taking free food. They feel like they're coming to a farmer's market. They just don't need to pay. So things like that, where they're giving to a whole slew of age brackets. I try to give a little bit of graphic novels, some Hunger Games, if I get some Harry Potter, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, some historical fiction, some, those new books, Who Was George Washington?
Of course.
I can read, Pig and Elephant. So I try to mix it up so that they have something different to give to any child that they service.
So it's at the flea market and they come and eat and read, or they just come to get the free books?
So one of the organizations, they make it look like a farmer's market. You know how sometimes in your town you might see on Saturday the white tents? So this is actually just that, but everything is free. So it's a farmer's market for their community, which is very much in poverty. And it makes them feel like they're shopping. So they take their little recyclable bag, they take the corn, they take the cornbread, the vegetables, and then they go to the food table. So it's very interesting to see how organizations who may not be literacy based, this is a feeding program, a food pantry program, to see how these types of organizations can they'll see us on social media and say, well, we typically give out socks, shoes, whatever, let's bring in books. I actually found over the last 2 months, and this was really like a small world, a grandmother 5 towns away from me used her garage to collect baby clothing from her friends and family, wash it, and create little donation baggies to give to new mothers in need. And I called her. I saw it on Facebook. Her daughter posted, does anyone have baby clothing? And I right back said, listen, my kids are old. I don't have clothing, but do you want infant books, board books? I'll bring you. So when I can, and I could fill up a huge, plastic bin, I'll drop it by her backyard. And she will donate those. So it's very interesting how we try to give people the opportunity to bring literacy into their main mission, which might be clothing or food. Or some sort of other service.
I think that's fantastic. Anything to promote, and you're not producing any shame by doing that.
Right.
You're producing belongingness.
Right.
It's like a get together.
Yeah. I mean, the goal is to make people feel empowered, that they can succeed. They have what they need. A lot of times I can imagine that they get, overwhelmed by what they don't have. Let's give them something that they can have, and give them something to show there is potential for growth and change and community support.
And how does the postage all work for this? In terms of getting the books out, in terms of mailing, how does that all work for you?
Oh boy, Robin. It's rough. I have volunteers who go through all of the donations we receive. I've trained them specifically throughout the pandemic to work remotely. Pre-pandemic, once a week, I had a space I would borrow, and we would sit for 4 hours, a handful of people, go through the books we received, put aside those that we need to recycle because they were not appropriate, label the ones that are good, and then package them, weigh them, ship them. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Since the pandemic, no one wanted to touch each other, smell each other, look at each other. So I started making like an appointment schedule, and I divided my front lawn into like 4 different pickup areas. Literally, it's brown bench, blue bench, garage, and driveway. People received the virtual training. I made a video and some in-depth directions, and people now still schedule an appointment to pick up books that we didn't look through yet, take them home, go through what's appropriate and can be donated, label that, bring them back to me within a week, and pick up the next batch. Now, when they drop it off, I spend typically about 15 to 20 hours a week.
Wow.
I go through, I make a list of who I'm donating to that night, look at any specifications. And I literally sit with a volunteer or two and we go through, you know, the things that were already reviewed once. We review them again, because this time my eyes can see them, to make sure that the volunteer, you know, follow the directions. And we package this box, which is like somewhere around 30, 40 pounds, contains between 50 and 70 books. And we use media mail. So it costs around $25. And there's no catch that we pay for everything, which is, of course, not so easy, but we do. And I send the recipient the tracking information. And all I ask in return is photos so I could show my supporters, here's what we're doing. And this is kind of the evidence to show that.
And helps get donations.
I hope so. It depends.
Yeah.
You see, you know, if someone who sees the post that catches their eye and it really, you know, is meaningful to them, sometimes we do get. But it's hard. I mean, there's so many good causes right now that are being publicized. It's hard to compete sometimes. So David and I always say we go until we hit the, you know, the roadblock. So
tell me, how did you feel to be on Hoda and Jenna?
It was wild.
That was amazing. I can imagine.
We really pushed. We found contact information for their publicity group, and we really pushed them to share our story. And a producer had reached out to us about a year and a half ago, and he said, "This is amazing. We need to figure out where to stick it because it can't fall behind the cracks. It has a story of its own." So I've been working with the producer since January of 21. And finally he called me in, what are we in like December. And he's like, okay, we're really doing it. And I said, you know what? I've heard this for a year already. You know, tell me when you really mean it.
Right.
I'm telling you, it's Jenna's and book club anniversary on World Read Aloud Day. What better day to do it than this? It was wild. We met Jenna in a studio a month before the live meeting. She pre-interviewed David and his children and myself in like a random Long Island City warehouse that they made a beautiful little room from the set. And then I looked at them and I said to Jenna, and I said, can I get excited now? Can I tell people this is happening? And she said, yeah, of course. And he looks at me, he goes, not yet. I'm like, okay. So this was February. So he said, and then he called me, you know, I think it was the end of February. He goes, okay, I need you at the NBC studio in 3 days for the live show. And I said, really? Actually, it's happening. I could start telling people.
How exciting.
And they sent us a car and we felt like celebrities. We sat in this green room. And I think the most meaningful part is while the people at home watched the story, you know, that the producer created, we were sitting with Hoda and Jenna waiting to be, you know, kind of saying like 3, 2, 1, talk. And I was watching them watch the video and watching their reaction and seeing that, you know, wow, this is an amazing thing that David created and we worked together to create. And the librarian, Rosanna, who sat with us, like, this is real. Like, you know, it's sometimes hard to see the impact because I'm in New York, my recipients are elsewhere, and I see photos, but it's not always feeling real. I have a full-time job. I raise 2 kids. But being there and seeing this and seeing that, you know, wow, we really did something. That was great. And of course, it gave us like motivation to kind of get all of that energy back that we may have lost and just keep it going.
That is so awesome. I hope you attach the link so people can watch. It's public information, all right? People can watch it on the link, right? If you have one.
Yes. It's on our social media pages. It's on our website the video. Actually, I have it now set to play automatically when you visit our website. It's really cool. And the producer, Dan Durkin, did such a great job of encompassing the story. There's so much more to it, specifically about Hindi and how she inspired students who spoke and colleagues and friends. There's so much more, but the way that he framed it really was a beautiful summary of kind of how we came to be.
That is so awesome. And then I read on your page that you got a lot of people interested.
Yeah.
From the interview.
Yeah, I have a lot of, interesting enough, former teachers and former librarians all over the country who now realize we can help them run a book drive in their community and guide them remotely on how to make an impact in their town. So we're working with a lot of people. We have people who have books that they've been shipping, from across the country through a very affordable way. We have with Give Back Box, and it's been really nice to kind of brainstorm and collaborate with, really wonderful people.
That is so awesome. Amazing. You never know what the work you kind of do can lead you.
Right. You really never know. I never thought that this is, I would end up here, and it's been a blessing. And I'm so glad that I could be a small part of something that, keeps Hindy's name alive for her family, for her friends, for the children who now know her through the books that, they're reading, that have her photo on the inside. It's really humbling to see. But I also think very empowering to show people that we don't have a big investor. We don't have donor, like a major donor that writes us a 6-figure check. We don't have an office. We don't have employees. I mean, we are all just doing this kind of when we should be sleeping, really. But we're all just doing it because it has an effect and we can do it. So that's, I think, very important for my children and young people to see that, money and connections is always wonderful to have. But if you don't have that, it doesn't mean you can't do something good. You still can. So that is also very gratifying for me to show my children.
You're making a difference. So in the time we have another minute and a half. Why don't you talk about any upcoming programs, how people could contact you?
Sure. We have 2 wonderful programs. The first program we have is called Pages for Paws. For every animal-themed book we receive through the end of May, new or gently used, Red Barn Pet Products is going to be matching that book with 1 day of pet nutrition for an animal in a Long Island rescue or shelter. We are finishing that event on May 22nd with an adoption event, a pet adoption event in Long Island. So those details are coming soon, but on our social media, the way to order a book and different ways to get involved in the match, they're already up and running. And next week, we're launching an Earth Day campaign where for every gently used book we receive, specifically nature themed, through a wish list that we've created, Treatum, a UK-based company that plants trees all over the world, supports the farmers in those areas. They're going to be matching it with 1 tree for every 5 books we receive, with a forest of 50 trees called Hindy's Forest. And the goal is, of course, just to get more books into the hands of children, for Earth Day, specifically gently used books to recycle and reuse. And it's just great. And we're always coming up with new things. And the best way to reach us is through our website, hindyslibraries.org, or to search up Hindy's Libraries or Leslie Gang on Facebook or Google. You'll find all of our social media platforms, and we try to be very responsive and, work with you to kind of do some good together.
Well, I thank you very much, Leslie Gang, co-founder of the Hindy Libraries, for coming on the show. My alma mater, my high school, I went to Bethpage High School in the late 70s, early 80s. I know Long Island pretty well. So thank you very much for coming on my show. The information about the Hindy Libraries will be posted at the show, as well as at the end of the tape. And you can contact Leslie if you have any questions. Well, thank you very much for coming on my show.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And this is Robin Miller. Good night.